Ephraim is a Liberian brother connected with my Messianic synagogue. Orphans and widows rely on him for help. Recently, they had an enormous flood. I first met Ephraim because my Messianic synagogue from Tikvat, Israel in Hawaii has connections with people all over the world. Oppressed and hidden believers in Pakistan. We have connections with folks who are doing amazing homeless outreach in Hawaii. We have connections with folks who do prison care. We have connections with folks who are in Kenya, Liberia, just many, many, many places. Now, we like to talk about becoming a real-life superhero, and a big part of that ethos is seeing a problem, and instead of waiting around for a corporation, government, charity to fix it, you decide yourself what you're going to do.
See your cooking, this firewood is what we can cook on here. The rest on the fire, there's the soup, pan butter.
Ephraim doesn't work for a government, he doesn't work for a corporation, he doesn't have a big charity behind him, there isn't a big religious organization behind him either. He's just a guy who's looked at a scripture passage that said we're supposed to take care of the widows and orphans, and he thought, well, somebody's got to do it, so I'm going to be the one.
Yes. See, we don't have kitchen. In the swamp when it's raining here, there's the little corn farm, the garden, as you see in the video. So swamp here, there's water.
So he has been, out of his limited resources, working with other members of their congregation to make sure people who have even less than them can be fed. So you can kind of understand how upsetting it would be if all of a sudden you're the person who's responsible for helping people in your area, and now not only do people not have food and water, but all of your stuff is also, flooded. Kids like this who are injured or ill now also have to deal with the problem of now nobody has anywhere to stay. So the big thing that really differentiates a superhero from an ordinary person is, instead of looking at impossible, you start asking the question of how. Isabel, my friend who runs the orphanage, who 20 years ago had nothing after the Liberian Civil War, was told, you're poor, how are you possibly going to take in all of these orphans that you're finding in the refugee camps? And she said, well, God wants me to. So she just decided she was going to do that. She found a very clever way, which you can hear about in the video about her. Ephraim is the same kind of person. Who's going to take care of his community, if not him? In Liberia, the situation with the economy is so bad that as the price of rice, which is the staple food, is going up, people have no jobs, and those who do have jobs aren't getting paid. Even the government isn't paying its workers anymore. So, what do you do? Part of that is figuring out how you can leverage tools like the internet. He doesn't have very much internet access. He can use internet once a week, which he uses to zoom into our synagogue services. But you can use that to make contacts and mobilize people to help your community. These bags of rice, you can see they're labeled Noble Express. There is actually a way that you can send food to Liberia, and this is something that we did over the summer. Noble Express is not a charity, by the way. Noble Express is literally a food mailing service for people in Liberia, because some folks have family in the United States and those family members can send them food. This is Ephraim's little fellowship. Usually you don't really associate Judaism or Messianic Judaism with people in Africa. But actually, both Judaism and Christianity have been in Africa longer than they have been in Europe. One of my goals has always been to kind of highlight people who are not the same as everybody around them. People who kind of break stereotypes to do their own thing. I really like Jeremy Lin for this reason, because Jeremy Lin is another very stereotype busting person. We tend to make assumptions about people, and we tend to decide, oh, this is what all of this person is like. And we also tend to de-identify and dehumanize people. We tend to say, oh, this person isn't a real whatever, or this person is a traitor to their race, country, whatever, because they are like this. And my goal has always been to see people as whole people and say, no, this person is who they are. Ephraim is a Liberian who believes the same thing that Messianic Jewish people believe, keeps the Torah, keeps the festivals, just like an Orthodox, Reform, or conservative Jewish person. And it's different. He has a different way of doing things, and nobody made him. He's in charge of his own little group. This is a thing that he decided, and other people in his community have come around him. And I imagine that one of the reasons his congregation is the size that it is because I'm sure they appreciate how his faith is lived out in action, which is another important superhero concept, that you don't just say what you believe. This is one of the places they were worshiping before their flood, and you can see everybody is in there really beautiful. This is kind of like the equivalent of Sunday best, but it'd be Shabbat best clothings with the head wraps. This is a long time before the flooding. This is another place that they have met before as well. So they kind of meet wherever they are able. So this is them singing and dancing together. And you can see that it's people of different economic statuses too. I like the little kid with the carrying their mother's black purse. The different economic statuses of the people within the community are kind of demonstrated by the different places that they're living. My friend Isabel has made this is rice, I think. Yeah, a rice like this for me before. It was quite spicy. And you can see it's communal sharing. It's very common, kind of like, same with Ethiopian food. I think that's rice. I can't see in the picture super good. So, and you can see that these gentlemen also wear an equivalent of a kippah or yarmulke, just like Orthodox, Reform, Conservative, and some Messianic Jewish people wear in the United States. So, I'm pretty sure that's sweet potato greens. That is something that is pretty commonly eaten there, at least from what I know from Isabel. And these are the kinds of materials that they share in their home group. The part of the UN that deals with food insecurity. One of the large statements that they made several years ago was that people in countries like the United States and Europe are having health crisis from too much meat. But some parts of the world, places like Liberia, children's health would be greatly improved if they had more access to meat. And in countries like the United States, we tend to have a lot of health crises that are related to too much meat, right? And you especially see that with the big changes in pollution and runoff due to the agricultural factory farm situation that we have because of our meat situation. Obviously, as a physician, I know good protein, good fats, and good vegetables and coenzymes. That's why things like the keto diet work for a lot of people. It's not good for everybody. Some people get into a lot of trouble and can be really hurt on the keto diet. But generally, carbs is what is bad for you when we're talking about folks in Liberia, just based with my experience the last 7 years with Isabel. They do have chicken when they can, but protein sources are a little bit difficult to come by. So that's why it was kind of special that we were able to send sardines and other fishy, healthy protein, basically. So there are ways to be 100% plant-based and get the proteins that you need, be vegetarian or vegan. It's going to be even harder in a very, very low income environment like theirs. They don't have B12 supplements. They don't have, access to all of the beans and lentils and every single different kind of protein or every single kind of nut and so forth that you can put together to make a complete protein source if you are a vegetarian or a vegan. So in a lot of these places in the world, that wouldn't be a practical lifestyle. So, let me just show you NobleExpress.com. We tend to, I think, have a very over-traditional view of what a charity or what world aid should be. The reality is, though, there are millions and millions of dollars of aid that have been poured into certain communities, and things haven't gotten better. In fact, there are some communities that are now poorer than when they first started getting aid. So The traditional charity system isn't working, partly because you tend to have the tragedy of the commons, right? Tragedy of the commons is something that you tend to experience in a lot of places where, like, a well has been dug for a community, for example. And organizations like Water Wells for Africa that work in Malawi, for example, are trying to change that paradigm. When they build a well, they're not just going to leave a well, which is going to break down within a year and be useless or be vandalized, or only one person instead of getting access to it. When they build a well, they first establish a community committee that is going to manage the water. They teach repairs and they figure out how they're going to source materials so that this is going to be sustainable, and there is a essentially community organization that is responsible for continuing it. Essentially what they're doing is putting the power into the hands of the people who are receiving the help. Similarly, Kiva, right? Kiva is a really neat twist. Instead of the traditional charity model, Kiva will loan people who are in need money. There's no interest or anything like that, in order that they can start their own mini business. It's called microfinancing. So, for example, a long time ago, I gave to a woman in, I think, Vietnam, who needed a wheelbarrow. She couldn't even afford a wheelbarrow, so that she could go into the trash dump and collect things that she could recycle and sell, right? And the idea is, once she's sold enough to pay back the loan, it ranges between like $25 to $100 depending on the situation. Her situation, I think, was like $25 or something like that. People end up paying back that loan to Kiva once they have the money to do so, and then that same money goes to help somebody else. So not only are you increasing the net value of your dollar, because each dollar can help multiple people over and over again, but again, you're putting power in the hands of the people that you're helping. And when you put power in the hands of the people you're helping, you kind of get out of this paternalistic, I'm the hero, I'm solving all the problems mentality, and you start to focus on seeing other people kind of as the hero of their own story, which is very important. And I think that's another big, like, superhero ethics point when we're trying to break away from the normal, right? The normal charity model has failed in many places in the world. The normal government aid model has failed in many places in the world. The model of lifting people up and seeing the hero in somebody else, I think, is kind of inherent to a realistic superhero model, right? Because a real life superhero couldn't really be as flashy unless you're calling attention to a cause. In general, you don't want to draw attention to yourself, you want to draw attention to the people that you're serving, because that's your focus. That is how you're going to get things done. If the attention is on other people, then it becomes contagious. And that's a big difference with the Kiva kind of model. That's not to say that traditional charity is completely all bad. There are economic institutes that talk about how, in the long term, investing in, for example, African business is going to be more helpful than dumping money at well products or so forth. But in the short term, there's children who are hungry and needy now. And so what do you do now? So, so there needs to be a balance. But I mention all of this to point out that there are ways to help that are not just charity, right? You don't have to just send money a place, you can send food a place. And when you do something like Noble Express, which is a business, they have employees in Liberia, so you're improving the Liberian economy. They also have employees in the United States, so you're taking business money essentially from the United States into Liberia in a way that's elevating people and allowing them to make money for themselves, right? You're not just helping the local economy, you're helping individuals, and those individuals are helping other people in the meantime. So this 100-pound bag of rice, I think what we sent was the fish pack. I think we sent this pack, the Express Premium Fish Pack, where we sent some noodles, 100-pound bag of rice, and a bunch of sardines and other things like that. They have since added some other really neat things to their store, like mattresses, generators. Isabel has on multiple occasions brought up to me the issue of, well, the electricity is out all over Liberia again. At her orphanage, they have a solar panel that was built for them by U.S. Marines many, many years ago, and we you and I helped them to repair it because it had been broken for a long time. So that way, when the electricity goes down, the children in that orphanage still have electricity, they can still study for school, everything isn't in total darkness, they can still communicate with the outside world, which is important. In other situations where they haven't had the benefit of some random group of Marines coming and building them a solar panel, a generator is a huge possibility. The only issue with that is that then you have to pay for gas regularly, but it's still better than having nothing, and you can store up the gas for a long time. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with Noble Express. Ephraim's situation, as I mentioned, is pretty different than Isabel's situation. She has this well-established orphanage. He is literally this young guy, now in his 30s, who goes around his area and brings food to widows and orphans in his area. If you want to send food to Ephraim through Noble Express, you can do so. You have to put his address on there. His address is going to be Ephraim Gaye Shaul, Paynesville City, Barclay Mission Field, and phone number 231-886-784192. Gaye Shaul, Paynesville City, Paynesville spelled Paynesville, Barclay Mission Field, Barclay, and then his phone number, 231-886-784192. And you can literally pick out what you want to send. There are mini packs. Most of the things on there tend to be a little bit in bulk. They tend to prefer US rice, I have been told, but you can also pay for local rice. Again, you end up helping in 2 or 3 ways, right? Because you're also helping the local economy, which is crap right now. Because it doesn't matter if you throw money at it and the local economy is so bad, none of you or me can just keep giving money forever, because one day we're going to die. So, you know, at some point, a different, more sustainable solution has to show up. Sometimes people need food. On average, the school quality tends to be poor in some of these countries. Very, very difficult for malnutritive children to learn. If you've grown up malnutritive, your brain does not have the same kind of development. If you can do something that is going to stimulate long-term change, that's the best way you could possibly do it. Kiva, the kiva.org that I mentioned, nobleexpress.com is spelled Nobel, express EXPRESS.com. So not noble like nobility, but like Nobel, like Nobel Prize. I will let Ephraim close you out.
So very soon we're praying that we will get help to take all the kids and the woman from here, the widow. See, so child. Thank you.